Hey everybody, Midnight Rider's back here again, getting ready to do another great episode here. Start my stopwatch. So, it's we got kind of a crazy weekend going on here in Atlanta. We got Dragacon or Comic-Con or whatever kind of con you call it. And we also have I guess like Black Pride Week or some shit like this, man. You can't make this crap up. Just really hectic out there. And being that it is Labor Day weekend, there's something that I actually wanted to kind of address and talk about. And that's PTSD. Specifically PTSD with soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen. And yeah, we'll even throw some Coast Guard guys in there too, because they definitely see some real shit every day. I've been talking a lot to especially some of my buddies and stuff like that, and you know, PTSD is a terrible thing. It really is a terrible thing. It affects so many different people in so many different ways. You know, there is no one size fits all type of thing for it. And I've always kind of struggled with this topic because you know, I think I was affected pretty badly when I first came home from Iraq. At least that's what my ex-wife will tell you. But I don't think that it ever affected me the way that it has affected a lot of guys. And so I think there's been a part of me that's always kind of doubted, maybe not so much of what they're going through, but just why they're going through it. I guess I've never really been able to understand how some things could affect people so badly and then not affect other people at all. And you know, I don't even really like to tie this in to this emasculation stuff that I'm talking about, because I know that it's real. I know that it's a legit thing. So there is no part of this where I'm trying to say that you know, combat veterans are coming back with PTSD. I know it's real. I'm not calling them pussies. I would like to actually try to go into a little bit more and maybe maybe try to pin down some of the things that we can try to do to help alleviate it a little bit, though, so that it's not such a prevalent thing out there. I was reading in the American Psychiatric Association journals today, and you know, they've traced this back to the Civil War. Obviously, it was called something, you know, very different. You know, World War I, you know, battle fatigue and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the way that they've classified it now as a mental disorder. I don't know that it's necessarily that is the mental disorder. I think that there's other elements to it that may very well be, you know, some sort of disorder, but I don't think that PTSD itself is a disorder. I think it's a very, it's such a touchy subject because nobody really, it's almost like everybody's got to be walking on eggshells, you know, around this topic because nobody wants to sound like the asshole, right? So I guess in a way, maybe somebody needs to start sounding like the asshole so that we can get to the bottom of this and actually kind of figure out what we can do to help it a little bit quicker or prevent it altogether. So it's been my perception throughout most of my life, as an Iraq War veteran, My father was a Vietnam veteran, and my grandfather was a World War II veteran. And, I always said, the World War II guys, they really never expressed a whole lot of anxiety. They really kept their shit together pretty well. For the type of carnage that they did experience, they really didn't seem to have a whole lot of mental problems after they came home. At least I know anyone that I've ever known from that time era didn't. They handled life pretty well. And so it was always kind of a thing where I really thought that that it's kind of like a new age type thing where people are really playing it out. You know what I mean? And, obviously doing some research and reading into it a little bit more, I know that that's not the case. But it still makes me question, how did those guys back then handle it so well? Were they just hiding their emotions? Was it just was it a generational thing? Was it a thing of, competitive badassery? I really would like to kind of know the different mindsets between, let's say World War II, Vietnam, and then service members today that were in either Iraq or Afghanistan. And again, I don't think that this is something that I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm not saying that anybody's right or wrong. I'm just trying to come up with some answers to try to help us so that we don't have to continue going through this. And I'll tell you, I've had several friends who have committed suicide. I've got several people that I know who they have loved ones who have committed suicide, and it's just it's such a tragedy. Whatever the numbers are, 22 a day or 26 a day, whatever the numbers are, it is such a tragedy. I've got to tell all of you that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And it's just not okay. Now, with saying that, I'm going to say something that every psychologist in the world is probably going to tell me that I probably shouldn't say. But I also don't believe that people should stay alive if they don't want to be alive. I happen to believe that happiness is a moral obligation. I happen to believe that gratitude is what drives us in this world and what helps us accomplish everything that we can accomplish. And if you don't have those, if you don't have the ability to maintain those, if you don't have happiness, if you don't have gratitude, then you're really kind of just going through life miserably. And I don't necessarily think that people should have to endure that kind of pain. I almost wish that there was a way, through psychological mediation, for people who truly don't want to live. I wish almost that there was a way for them to, a legal course for them to just go ahead and not have to suffer anymore. And the thing that kind of brought me to this conclusion was that I noticed a lot of guys with PTSD, it's almost like they don't want to get better, right? It's almost like a victim mentality where they want to stay in that state of sorrow, in that state of misery. And I can tell you, this truly breaks my heart to even talk about this. But we owe it to people to figure out the best solution, right? I'm a firm believer that if you're not part of the solution, then you are part of the problem. And the simple truth is that there are some people who are incurable. There are some people who, no matter what type of counseling they get or what type of therapy it's just not going to help them. And I personally believe that this is very closely tied to other, you know, mental disorders. You know, maybe some, you know, manic depression or something like that, or some bipolar. You know, I mean, there's several different things that it could be connected to. But I just really think that we have to start having a real conversation about this, and we have to start recognizing those are the people that really, you know, they understand what they're going through, and they want to get help, and they're able to talk about it. They're able to go to meetings, and they're able to find like-minded people that can help them. Right? That's the sign of a person who wants to get better. But then there's the other side of the coin. You know, there's the guys that just drink themselves to death, or they, you know, they start doing hard drugs, or they, you know, they get into these patterns where they, you know, all that honorable service that they had kind of turns around and flips, and they start doing dumb shit. You know, they start beating up their wives and their kids, and they start doing drugs and getting into trouble, getting DUIs, and you know, starting to get, they have a hard time holding down jobs. And obviously this is, you know, this is the type of thing that a lot of people are dealing with. But here again, I'm trying to figure out the difference between the ones who want help and they want to get better compared to the ones who really don't. I think there is a level of victimhoodness, if that's a word. I think there's a level of that some people fall into, and it's almost like they just can't pull themselves out of it, right? I mean, they it's almost like they get comfortable by being a victim, right? And we see this with a lot of different groups of people. I'm not just talking about PTS guys. You know, obviously this is a psychological thing that happens to a lot of people. I mean, you know, hell, we could talk about, you know, the entire victimhood state of the black community, right? I mean, this is something that people, you know, when they get put into a certain way, they have a very hard time pulling themselves out, because everybody around them is convincing them that this is how they should be, right? I mean, I don't really even know how to talk about this because it affects so many people so badly. But I don't want to be PC about it. I know that. I don't want to sit here and have a peaceful conversation about this. I really, what I want is, I want people to start getting their heads out of their asses, right? I want these these combat veterans that were brave enough to defend all of your freedoms, right? These combat veterans that were able to go over there and kick ass and take names. I want them to be able to come back, and I want them to be able to stop experiencing this victimhoodness, because I actually think that that's worse than the PTSD itself. And man, I know I'm going to get some hate mail about this. I know I'm probably going to get all kinds of friends that are going to hate me for even having this conversation. And, you know, I know that there's people out there that experience far worse things than me, and they're probably not going to be shy about pointing that out. So everybody needs to understand that I'm not the enemy here. I really am trying to find a solution. I'm trying to help people. But on the same time, we've got to stop making excuses, right? We've got to stop making excuses. If you're a veteran and you're having these problems, you need to find somebody to talk to. Okay, stop being Billy Badass. Stop trying to deal with this shit on your own. If you realize that you're not doing some of the things in life that you know you should be doing, things like holding down a job, things like not needing to drink yourself to sleep, things like not beating the hell out of your wife and kids. If you see yourself in this pattern, then common sense would say that you need to go find a way to deal with this, right? Don't sit here 20 years later, or, you know, however long, 5 years later, don't sit here and continue going down the same rut that you've always gone down, and then, you know, pretend like you're all good. Knock this shit off, man. Go get some help. Go talk to somebody. Now, here's the thing. I get it. Believe me, I get it. There's nothing worse than going into the VA and talking to some stupid ass psychiatrist that has no experience in combat, you know, that has some kind of a master's degree in psychological theory or some shit. I get it. I get how terrible it is to talk to those people, and I'm not even saying that you got to go and talk to them. I'm not a big believer in the VA, period. In fact, I don't go to the VA. I just happen to be lucky enough to make enough money that I can afford my own health care and all that kind of stuff. And I don't recommend going to the VA. I don't recommend taking their bullshit medications. I don't recommend, you know, doing half the stuff that these people are going to tell you to do. In fact, if you want to get, you know, honest about this, I would actually recommend for every veteran out there that has severe PTSD, don't take any medications like that. Don't take any pharmaceuticals. I'm talking, don't even take Tylenol. Okay, that shit is having a chemical reaction with your brain. If you want to do something, smoke some weed. I mean that straight up. Stay away from alcohol. Stay away from prescription medications. Go and smoke some weed, man. It's going to help you get better. Marijuana is a natural upper. You know, if you got to move to a state where it's legal, then do that. I don't know when the hell they're going to make it legal here in Georgia. I'll probably be dead by then. But the point is that, you know, there are ways for you to get better. Don't just sit here and become a victim of your circumstance. Get your ass out there. Do what you got to do to make yourself better and become productive again, man. Don't sit here and waste your life. Don't sit here. Don't commit suicide. Don't do it. We have a lot that we are still responsible for giving this world. If you were brave enough to take on the entire country's freedom onto your back, then you're brave enough to get through this little challenge too. You owe it to your kids, you owe it to your wives, you owe it to society. We're not done with you. Try to find people who are like you. I know that everyone has their own individual experience, and I know that everybody out there doesn't want to share. Okay, I get it. But find people who have been in similar situations. You know, here's the thing that I talk a lot about. We are who we associate with, right? If you want to be a rich person, then you hang out with rich people, right? In the military, if you want to be a special forces guy, then you hang out with special forces guys, right? You don't hang out with the supply guy. He's not going to get you into SFAS very well, is he? If you want to achieve things in life, then you have to associate with the people that have already achieved those things. This is scientific. You know, some people think it's laws of attraction, whatever. But this definitely applies to people with PTSD. We are only as good as the people that we associate with. If you want to stay depressed and if you want to stay in a funk, then hang around other dickheads who are fucking drunk and whiny too. Okay? Misery begets misery, right? Misery loves company. We are only as good as the people that we associate with and the people that we socialize with. I've even seen situations, I mean, I'll talk a lot more about this in other types of podcasts, especially dealing with business and stuff like that. But I mean, I've seen it even in times I myself, I mean, I've actually even had to let go of some family members because they were dragging me down instead of lifting me up. My dad was, you know, before my dad died, he was probably the worst one of them all. My dad was a constant whiner. You know, all this Vietnam crap. Oh, the government hated us and the people came back and spit on us. Like, you know, fucking boo-hoo, dude. You know what I mean? I know plenty of Vietnam guys that came back and had very happy, successful lives. They built great businesses, they had great families, and they knocked the shit out of the ballpark because they didn't want to be a victim. And that's all I'm saying here, too. I'm not saying that this is a cure-all, but what I am saying is that if you truly want to get better, there are ways to help you. And if you don't want to get better, then go ahead and continue doing the same shit that you're doing. Right? Go ahead and keep being a burden. I'm not saying that you don't have the right to do that. All I'm saying is that it kind of takes away your badassery to survive what you survived. and then come back and turn out to be a shitbag. I don't imagine that anybody else could really have this conversation because nobody else really knows what the fuck they're talking about. I can tell you I struggled with PTSD for quite a few years. I mean, I spent probably about 5 years after I came home from Iraq drinking myself to sleep every night. And it actually took one of my bosses, he was not a combat veteran, but he was an Army veteran. And it took him one day kind of pulling me to the side and telling me, he said, man, you got to get your head out of your ass. He said, you're going to end up drinking yourself to death. You're going to end up, you know, choking to death in your sleep or something like that. And it really changed my whole perception about life and everything, because he kind of sat me down and he said, dude, man, you've got a lot to be happy for. He said, all you got to do is do a couple of things and you'll have the best life that you could ever imagine. And at the time, I got a little offended and I got a little butthurt. And I said, man, fuck you. You don't even know what you're talking about. You weren't there, blah, blah, blah. And then it started kind of clicking. I kind of started seeing how things can be better. Okay, doing simple things. I mean, this guy, you know, I mean, we started doing simple things, you know, like playing golf, and, you know, he got me kind of doing the whole meditation thing and all that kind of stuff. And I started seeing a change in myself, and I was like, man, this shit really does work. And then obviously, you know, I started my business, and, you know, I got remarried, and the whole, you know, whole 9 yards, you know, just one thing after another. It was like a constant state of progression. And now I think my biggest regret is that somebody didn't tell me that sooner, because it would have saved about 5 years. Now, I still drink alcohol from time to time, believe it or not, and I'm not sponsored by Guinness either, but believe it or not, I only drink about 1 beer a week, and that's usually when I'm doing these videos. I really don't drink a lot because it's just not that enjoyable to me. You'll never see me drunk. Now, I will smoke weed. I'll smoke weed all day long if I had it. Unfortunately, it's illegal here in Georgia. But I do believe in the benefits of marijuana, and I am very pro marijuana. I really am. I mean, I'm a West Coast guy originally anyway, so I guess it's just kind of part of my upbringing. But I don't see anything wrong with it. I would much rather see somebody smoke weed than to drink alcohol or to take prescription medications. And here's what I'm saying, though, is you've got to be able to find your happiness. You've got to be able to figure it out. You can't let other people try to tell you what to do, because we've all got our own opinions, right? And opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one and they all stink. What you need to do is you need to find your own happiness. Stop waiting for it to come to you and go find it. Right? If it's changing your job or starting a business, or hell, it may be divorcing your wife. Who knows? I don't know what's going to bring you your happiness, but you've got to find it. You've got to stop making excuses, and you've got to go out and find it. And this is where I say that I think that there's a lot bigger area of mental disorder behind the PTSD than what we even realize, because there are some people who will not be able to pull themselves out of this no matter what happens. There are some people who will hold on to their suffering for their entire lives. Now, the argument can be had if those people want that or not. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't pretend to be. But what I do know is that people who want to find happiness usually find happiness. That's what I do know. And so try to take this for what it's worth. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm better than you. I'm not saying that you're, you know, just dog shit dumb. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is that you have a responsibility to yourself and to your loved ones to try to get better. Nobody has a responsibility to help you except yourself. The VA is a joke. We all know this. Don't rely on them. They're only going to make it worse 9 times out of 10. I can promise you that. But on the same hand, get out there. Find good people to associate with. Find people that you can talk to. Find people that have been through some of the things that you've been through. Um, link up with them. You know, if you ever need to talk about anything, you can leave me your contact information, leave me a comment or anything like that. Find me on Facebook, and that's fine. And I will talk to you all day long. If I can't help you, I will find somebody who can. If you are thinking about suicide, please don't do it. Please call a suicide hotline. There again, if you need some numbers, I can provide you with some numbers. Please don't do it. It is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and it's not okay. Now, with saying that, like I said before, if there really is no hope, then we need to figure something else out, because it's also not okay that you go through life, you know, completely miserable either. Just try to think of other people in your life and how badly it's going to affect them, and try to think of the best way for you to get yourself out of this. Now, going back to one of my original statements, I believe we have a moral obligation to be happy. Happiness and gratitude truly are the key to success. It's the key to healthy living. And there's so many different elements that play into this, right? I mean, there is living healthy lifestyles, right? I mean, anything that you're doing that is not healthy. Again, alcohol, tobacco, any of that kind of stuff that is bringing your body down, you want to try to just get rid of it, man. Just quit, cold turkey. It really is that easy. Remember, all of this stuff is about willpower. It's not about chemical addictions. It's not about being overweight. It's not about any of that stuff. It really is mind over matter, right? It's willpower. You can accomplish the impossible if you set your mind to it. If you believe it, you can achieve it. And I'm a firm believer in that theory. I really am. And the same goes true. If you don't think you can achieve it, then you definitely will not achieve it. I can't remember what the quote was, but it basically says that if you, well, you know, basically you're in the exact position that you want yourself to be in, right? Poor, you know, whatever the case may be, you're there because you choose to be there. And we live in such a victimhood society where everybody is a victim. The last people who should be victims now are people who actually earn their own freedom and kicked ass for everybody else in this country. I love you. And there's a lot of other people that love you too. Sometimes the things that I say don't necessarily come out right. Sometimes, you know, there's a lot of people who misunderstand what I'm trying to say. And sometimes I seem like a much, you know, bigger asshole than I really am. But here's what I can tell you unequivocally. I love you, and I'm truly grateful for your service to this country. I am truly grateful that there was men that were badass enough to go out there so that these people can act as stupid as they want to act. America is the greatest country in this world, and it's because of people like you. And don't worry, I'm going to take some of that credit too. But we need to figure out a way to curb this PTSD. You know, this is a real epidemic. You know, they talk about Corona. That's not an epidemic. That's a hoax. PTSD is an epidemic. Right, and here again, it all goes back to victimhood. You know, there's so many things that play into this. We have to be able to figure out a way to stop it. We have to figure out a way to get back to that World War II mentality where people did what they did. They came home, they built their businesses and their families, and they carried on being a productive member of society. That's what we need to get back to. That should be the ultimate goal. And it's just a question of having the right conversation, giving the right motivation, and seeing the right type of action. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. I remember one time I went to I can't remember if it was a Soldier of the Month or maybe it was an NCO board, and they asked me the question, what is the definition of leadership? And back in my day, the definition of leadership is the ability to accomplish a mission by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. And I think that that is something that a lot of you have not been receiving a lot of, right? Nobody's out there giving you that support that you need. They're not giving you that purpose. But here's the problem. Nobody's going to do that for you. People might talk a good game, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to provide those things to yourself. You've got to find your purpose. You've got to find your direction. You've got to find your motivation. What is it that makes you want to succeed and thrive? And if I can help you do that, then let's do that. Again, this is kind of an off the cuff meeting here. I just really wanted to kind of put that out there, being that it is Labor Day weekend and being that there's so many things going on all over the country. Atlanta this weekend is, gridlocked. It's been this way since Friday, so I can't even go ride the bike. But let's start coming up with some solutions. Let's stop making excuses. Let's get back to being the kind of men that we need to be. And with that, I want you all to enjoy the rest of your weekend and take care. Till next time.